good. Okay. So, welcome everyone. This is our fourth night of meeting for this workshop. And the classes are recorded. Again, we don't show any faces on the recordings. If you like to share, but you're shy or you don't want to be recorded, please let Lolly, the host, know, and we'll put you at the back end so that when it comes to editing it, it's a little bit easier. But we will accommodate that. We don't want anyone to feel like they can't speak during the meeting. Okay. So this is just a little information. If you have any questions, you can get in touch with me via the Gmail address on the screen, and just shoot me an email. Let me know what you're thinking or what you're stuck on, and I'll try to maneuver you along so you're not feeling like you're getting lost. In the event that we are finding that the time isn't being shared properly, most likely going forward, because right now it's not the real heavy duty stuff, but we will implement a timer so that we can keep an eye on what's going on with people's sharing. And I do want to also just remind people that this workshop is not about sharing stories like a traditional 12-step meeting would be. This is a workshop where we're going to focus on the 12 steps and the solutions that are embedded in those 12 steps. So this recommended suggestion is, if you need to, talk to somebody about what's going on, get to a meeting, call your sponsor or whatever you normally do. But this is really not the place that we do that. There's too many different fellowships in here to be having a traditional meeting. So everyone is muted. And if you could do the set aside prayer with me, say it along with me. God, please set aside everything that I think I know about myself, my brokenness, my spiritual path, and you for an open mind and a new experience with myself, my brokenness, my spiritual path, and especially you. We want to remember that we are setting aside, we're letting go of our preconceived notions and having an open mind. On page 27 in the big book, Bill says, ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces of the lives of us, these men and women, are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begins to dominate us. And this little set aside prayer really gets that whole change of motives and conceptions going. So if you can implement it into your day, at least in the beginning of your day, and you can put in whatever little nuances that are going on in your life into this prayer and really work it, and you're going to see a big change in your own life. Also, please join me in the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I do want to just start with a quote from page 49. We who have traveled this dubious path beg you to lay aside prejudice, even against organized religion. We have learned that whatever the human fragilities of various faiths may be, those faiths have given purpose and direction to millions. People of faith have a logical idea of what life is about. Bill Wilson had a nuanced view on religion, emphasizing personal spiritual experience over strict adherence to religious dogma. While he believed in a higher power for recovery, he explicitly stated that this higher power could be interpreted in any way that resonated within each individual, including a non-religious or even atheistic perspective. Bill's approach was inclusive, allowing for a wide range of beliefs and practices within AA, and he actively worked to make the program accessible to those with varying religious and non-religious backgrounds. And I wanted to read this tonight to reassure everyone that we're not talking about religion. We're not saying you need to broaden your religion. We're talking about your connection to the source of what you believe is your higher power. So whatever religion you might feel you come with, it doesn't have to change. We're not suggesting that. We're not advocating for that. We're talking about whatever that concept is that perhaps rules your religion. That's where we want to broaden our view. And it doesn't have to have anything to do with your religion. So please don't feel like you have to have a religion or you have to get rid of a religion. That is not at all what we're going to be doing here. So last Tuesday, we talked about step 11, and I want to take a little second look at that discussion. When I spoke about prayer and meditation, I also stated that it was important to do it on a daily basis in order to fill our vessels. So to give you a metaphor that might help, when we use a cell phone, this might make sense to people. When we use our cell phones, and most of us use them quite a bit, we use it for phone calls and email, and mine's my alarm, and I check social networking, my accounts, all kinds of stuff. And at the end of the day, if I'm lucky, I can plug my phone in while I sleep. Sometimes I need to recharge it during the middle of the day because it gets a lot of usage, but generally I can get through the whole day with a full charge. So if I unplug my phone after my morning meditation, my phone will go all day. But like I said, sometimes I can't get that charge to continue my day. So it would be hard for me to operate or get through my day without my phone if it's not charged. And that's the same way that we can look at our spiritual guidance. I have to start the morning plugged in. I got to get my charge. I want to check my spiritual battery. What level is it at? And maybe around lunchtime, if I've been using it a lot or not, even though I just seem to look at the battery all the time anyways, because, oh my gosh, it might actually die on me. So, if you looked up into the heavens or stratosphere, or wherever you look, as often as you looked at your phone to check your battery, just to connect with your higher power, what a difference that would make. And I can honestly tell you that checking in with your higher power is always going to be more important than checking your phone's battery. So next time you pick up your little phone to check to see if you've got a good charge or not, check in with your higher power and see how that charge is going. So step 10 begins on page 84. We have entered the world of the spirit. It says that, and we notice that at the end of the 9th step, there are several promises that lead up to the 10th step. And they're promises of a spiritual awakening, of change. And at some point, we suddenly realize that our higher power is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. It's what some people refer to as the promises of the 9th step. That's the promise. We realize our higher power is doing for us what we weren't able to do prior to that. And we've comfortably settled into the relationship with this power, which defends against step 1's powerlessness. And speaking of those promises, are they extravagant? No, they're really not. And although these are promises and they're at the end of the 9th step, Bill says they will always materialize if we work for them. Steps 1 through 9 are the program of recovery. 10, 11, and 12 are the program for living. Steps 1 through 9 are the deflation of the ego in depth through establishing an effective relationship with power. And although these promises are at the end of the 9th step, Bill says they will always materialize if we work for them. But what is the work? What does that mean? What is Bill referring to? Well, that brings us to step 10. On page 59, we continue to take personal inventory, which is in reference to step 4. We take a searching and fearless moral inventory about our behaviors, our internal motives, and our beliefs. We take a searching and fearless moral inventory. It refers to a thorough self-assessment of one's past actions, behaviors, and character defects. It involves very strong honesty, examining both positive and negative aspects of one's life to understand how this addiction and other issues have impacted oneself and others. Searching implies a deep dive into one's past, while fearless means confronting uncomfortable truths without self-deception or avoidance. So a personal inventory, it's not about our morals or our principles. Step 10 is about how we're behaving. We're looking at our behaviors and then our reactions that create our behaviors and our reaction to our behaviors. Step 10 continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So step 10 is an admission of our powerlessness to do any better. We intend to do better, but we don't do any better. And we continue to set right away any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commence this way of living, of using steps 10, 11, and 12. This is our way of living on a daily basis. It's not a goal. It's not someday. It's not, hey, when you finish this workshop, you can do 10, 11, and 12. It's happening right now, which is part of the reason Herb turned things around and put step 10, 11, and 12 at the beginning. So again, it's our way of living. And Herb realized that having done 10, 11, and 12 first, it gives step 1 so much more power and a deeper experience. A deeper experience with powerlessness. We have entered the world of the spirit. So Herb says, this is a quote, "Where the hell have we been, for God's sake, if we're just entering the world of the spirit, having done steps 1 through 9? I can't argue with him there. I've always felt like, how do we get all the way up to 10 when we really need to do those higher ones first so that we can do the lower ones? But anyways, it is a great point, and I am totally on board and in agreement, especially given that this is a spiritual journey. Let's get it going with the discovery already in our pocket so that we can really do all these steps to the highest degree possible. We enter the world of the spirit, and as we do, the dimmer switch goes up a notch at a time. Starting from a very low voltage, Bill says it happens when we enter the world of the spirit. And things have been really dark. It is hard to see. It's frightening. But we gently turn that dial up 1 click at a time. And the light gets a tiny bit brighter 1 click at a time. And in the beginning, sometimes we don't see that it's getting brighter, but we stick it out and we stay in there. We want to achieve this world of the spirit. And if it's so slight at the beginning we don't feel it, that's okay. We are going to feel it. It's a promise. Bill made that promise. So Bill use, used the word recovered consistently throughout the big book. And it is really a promise of hope because when we hear it in the past tense, claiming the problem will be behind us, when will we solve this problem of the body, because we won't be using our process or substance addiction anymore. We solve the problem of the mind because we have no inclination to use anymore. So when Bill refers to, or did refer to, recovered, he wasn't talking about the will. He was talking about the body and the mind. Those two places were referred to in the past tense as recovered because the addiction part was removed. But that's only physical sobriety. Bill promised that we would be free from it, but we have to be really careful because being freed from physical sobriety is not enough. The problem that we're facing, which is the unmanageability, came way before we had the physical issues or the process issues. So we have to be careful when we read recovered because we're not. We're not cured. We have merely a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. This is the model of the entire step process. We come to the realization that the body and the mind are recovered, but that the will is not cured. It will never be cured. So steps 1 through 9 are the rocket launch that Bill talks about in step 1. We get into the rocket. That's our part, getting in there, climb aboard. But once we get on board, the rocket takes us where the rocket's going to go. We have some ability to manage or steer the rocket, but the rocket's going to take us where it's going to take us, which is into orbit around the light, and that is steps 1 through 9. It's called a 3-step launch. 1 through 3 is a relationship with our higher power, the power. Steps 4 through 7 are relationship that we have with ourselves. And then steps 8, 9, and 10 are our relationship with others. And we are in orbit around that light. So that's a 3-step launch. 1 through 3, relationship with our higher power. If you read the steps and you notice that the commonality that they have is about the relationship with our power. So that's the beginning of the 3 stages. We need to connect to the power. And then steps 4 through 7 is the relationship with ourselves. Well, we really need to develop a relationship with ourselves. Most of us put ourselves aside in favor of our addiction, whether that is people addictions and we play the people pleaser and we put ourselves last, or it's the actual addiction itself. But we don't come first. Our addictions and our other issues do. And then steps 8, 9, and 10 are eliminating the obstacles to our relationship with others. What's been going on? What have we created in our lives through all of our craziness and all of our focused attention on what was going on other than our lives? Where have we been? We need a relationship with others. That's part of life. We're social beings. So that stage 3 rocket takes off and we're in orbit around that beautiful spirituality of light. And we can be in orbit as long as we do steps 10, 11, and 12 to make those daily adjustments. Yes, we are in the rocket, but there are levers in there that allow us to stay in the trajectory as antidotes to the gravity of my unmanageability and eventually the gravity of my addiction. But we've got to do 10, 11, and 12 daily so that we can stay in that fun little rocket. All right, so let's take a look at addiction in step 10, which is a repeat of the step 4 obstacles to power on a small scale. So we identify and analyze that self-centeredness that I talked about, that Bill talks about on page 62. And self-centeredness is, we're going to go into it later, but self-centeredness means, in a very short definition, that we believe the world revolves around us and that everything is happening to us and for us and by us. And it's a pretty ego-centered type of thinking. And what is the root of that problem? It's laid at the bottom of our foundation. It's the root of the fruit. And the fruit of the root is anger. So anger gets us there. Anger about all kinds of things, not just our addiction, but anger about low self-esteem issues, anger about people-pleasing things and codependence things, and you guys get it. On and on and on it goes. So anger is the biological instinct of survival, of fight, translated into the emotional reaction of anger and resentment. Anger that is held onto, and we feel it over and over again, will continue to grow. It will eventually take over, like that tree where all the roots are grounded in anger. It's bound to grow into something out of control. And even though it's a basic human emotion and it's characterized by feelings of displeasure, hostility, antagonism, it's actually a normal emotion. It can become problematic when it's expressed inappropriately or excessively, leading to resentments. And as an instinct of survival, of fight, translated into the emotional reaction of anger and resentment. Not all resentment is anger, but pretty close. And then we have the fear. And the fear is a fundamental human emotion that evolved to help us avoid danger and protect ourselves. So it's fight, flight. That's what we have. When we have resentments, we have fight. We want to fight everyone. We want to fight the world. Or we have the fear part of it, which is flight. I'm going to run as fast as I can to get away from my life, my thoughts, my feelings, my family, whatever it is. Fight and flight. And Bill also takes a look at our unhealthy sexual behaviors. And by sexual behaviors, we don't mean sexual acts. We're talking about behaviors around sexuality. Bill W.'s perspective on unhealthy sexual behaviors in the program recognizes that issues around sex and relationships are common and can impact sobriety. It's very prevalent in the addictive field to have sexual issues that crop up quite a bit. Bill W. does not explicitly define unhealthy sexual behaviors as a separate category, but encourages individuals to examine their sexual conduct for selfishness, dishonesty, and inconsideration in their relationships. The Big Book emphasizes the need to move beyond selfishness in all aspects of life, including sexual relationships. When individuals are driven solely by instincts and desires for sex, security, or society, and without consideration for others, it can lead to unhealthy and destructive behaviors. An unhealthy sexual conduct can hurt others, causing jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness in our relationships. The Big Book encourages examining actions for inconsideration and whether there was a lack of respect for another person's boundaries and comfort levels in sexual interaction. So this will come up later, but it's important to not be frightened by the sex category. It's not about sex, it's about our behaviors around sexuality, not the act of sex. So, this balance that needs addressing, according to step 4, helps us understand our biological model from flight and fight and freeze, which camouflage, hiding the dishonesty mechanism for survival and keeping secrets. Concepts that are relevant for most people, not probably as prominent in Bill's time. This is important to know because in step 10, this is what it's built on. So the dishonesty, the secrets, the guilt, and the shame. Those are the things that can put us into the freeze mentality. We get caught, we freeze, we lie, or we tell secrets, or we feel guilt, and then we feel shame. Those are the freeze. So the first 9 steps are for the deflation of the ego at depth. Eckhart Tolle, a brilliant, brilliant author and amazing person, describes ego in his book, A New Earth. An ego that wants something from another, and what ego doesn't, will usually play some kind of role to get its needs met, be they material gain, a sense of power, superiority or specialness, or some kind of gratification, be it physical or psychological. Usually people are completely unaware of the roles they are playing. They are those roles. Some roles are subtle, others are blatantly obvious, except to the person who's playing the role. Some roles are designed simply to get attention from others. The ego thrives on others' attention, such as recognition, praise, admiration, or just to be noticed in some way, to have its existence acknowledged. Deflation of the ego is the point of step 10. So the 12-step process is about waking up. And we all have a certain degree where we're just asleep to our lives. We're asleep to what is going around all around us. Some people call it denial, some people call it being asleep. And this process is about waking up. And we'll take a better look at our beliefs, but that's where it starts. When we take a look at our beliefs, we can see that they come in different colors. If I look through my blue lenses, I'm going to see blue everywhere. If I'm wearing my yellow lenses, again, I'll see yellow wherever I look. And when I put on my pink glasses, they're my favorite, I see pink. I won't know that this is what I'm seeing only because it is the only thing I am seeing, because it is the lenses through which I look. And the problem is, most of our lenses are distortions of our motives, and therefore, we see reality in the distorted way. So those lenses color everything in our existence. The reality of ourselves, the reality of other people, the reality of reality itself, of the world. It's distorted, but we don't know it's distorted because it is the only thing that we can see because we look through the lenses at reality. We don't see the lenses through which we are looking. We don't even realize we're wearing the glasses. In step 4, we'll begin to identify the lens and the distortion of our beliefs and the distortions of our motives. And therefore, the distortions of our emotions. We're disturbed. The 12 and 12 has a formula that is a tool of emotional sobriety. It's a spiritual axiom. Whenever I am disturbed, there is something wrong with me. wow, it still blows me away when I say it or tell somebody or read it. The first time I heard this idea, I was frankly shocked that anyone would even say it. I thought it was absurd. How could it be true? I'd say, well, they haven't met my sister in law, or they don't know how much that particular situation cost me, or they don't know my ex husband and how much of a nasty narcissist he is. But I am disturbed because of them. They are doing it to me. And I would say, how can they not see this? It's so obvious. How can't everyone see how horrible my ex husband is? So, we say things like, well, if you saw how my life went or how my boss treated me, oh God, you should have seen my childhood. You'd use all the time too. You'd have addiction issues because I have a really good reason to be this way. And I'm going to blame it on whoever I can. So when I embraced the theory and believed it's true that I am disturbed because of me and my distorted thoughts and emotions, my life made a humongously dramatic change. I would put the lenses on every day and wear them with self righteousness. And I can't lie, on some days, for some events, I sometimes can still wonder if it is really true. Am I really the source of all this disturbance? I don't have a part in my resentments. I don't have a part in my anger. I don't have a part in my being disturbed because the responsibility is 100% mine. All the parts belong to me. So I take responsibility for my feelings and thoughts because nobody can make me anything without my consent. Nobody can force me to have certain feelings or emotions or even a bad day. My reactions to people, places, and things are my responsibility. People, places, and things, though, aren't my issue. My reaction to all these things is. And I didn't know until I knew, and then I couldn't deny it was true, and it changed me permanently. Once you really understand your responsibility, it's extremely hard to go back and blame other people. And you'll do it, but you'll catch yourself and you'll realize how wrong it is. So the big book says continue to watch for selfish resentment, dishonesty, and fear. We have to be vigilant. When these crop up, not if, when, because we never transcend our humanity or our unmanageability. Unmanageability is not connected to addiction. It is connected to my human nature. I can be freed from my addiction, but I am not going to be freed from my human nature. I'm never not going to be human. I won't ever transcend my human nature. I will always have things to deal with. And when I do, I have three survival mechanisms. And those survival mechanisms are fight, flight, and freeze. And translated into emotional mechanisms, they translate into misbehavior. And the root cause is my selfishness. My will is deficient. My will always choose me. It favors me. And I don't have enough willpower to turn that around. And that is why in step 3, we make the commitment to turn. We turn to be in alignment with reality, to be in alignment with God, in alignment with the power, in alignment with anything other than myself. We turn our will and our life over to the care of God. And I love this analogy of the GPS. When we turn our will and our life over to the care of God, think about a GPS. I have a car, I have the key, I have my driver's license, I know how to drive my car. I know where I want to go, but I don't know how to get there. So I got everything I need, but I need direction. So I get in my car and I put the directions into my GPS. I listen and I watch as I drive along. I follow the GPS's directions. This is what we are going to do with step 10. We are listening for direction. We do the footwork, and then we leave the end result up to our higher power. I once was driving for the first time by myself in New York City at 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was a huge feat because I wasn't driving at all for many years. And I felt okay because I had my GPS. And this was before I knew the GPS analogy. And around 2 o'clock in the morning, I was going through New York City, which was my most feared place. I was heading to Tennessee, and my GPS stopped working. And I pulled over because I had to. I didn't even have a map on me. And I pulled over and I was just stupefied. I did not know what I was going to do at 2 in the morning. There was not even anybody walking. And what was I going to say? How do I get to Tennessee? So I sat and I prayed because literally, what else could I do? And I prayed, and my phone rang at 2:30 in the morning, and it was my granddaughter who I was going to see in Tennessee, who was driving from Florida, and she was able to give me directions. That was an amazing event. And ironically, when I got out of the city of New York, my GPS kicked back in, and I never had another issue with that GPS as long as I owned that car. So, this is what we're doing in step 10. We're listening for the direction. We know what we want, we know how to set it up, but we don't know how to make it happen because we don't have the power. So when I'm disturbed, the first thing I do is I pause. I need to pause because I need to acknowledge and recognize the fact is I'm disturbed. What's going on? Hold on, I got to stay here for a second. Why am I disturbed? So I pause. That's the action. But then I pray. I talk to my higher power. We talk about what's going on. I ask for guidance. And then Bill says, we discuss it with someone immediately. Notice he said, first we ask God, the code for prayer at once to remove them. Bill says we discuss it with someone immediately. We don't do a 10th step at night. We don't do step 10 in writing. He doesn't say that either in the book or the 12 and 12. He says, in fact, in the 12 and 12, it gives us a repetitive confirmation of the exact nature of our step 10 tool. It's a spot check inventory. And what does that mean? When I am disturbed, on the spot, I take step 10 on the spot. It could sound like this. Dear Lord, I have been overly controlling again. And it was with my husband, so I need to talk to him about it. And I tell him, I'm struggling with control. And he says to me, oh, yeah, you were clearly trying to control me. He knows my struggles. He knows what control is to me and that I'm trying to get more of it all the time. And he says, I get it. You have been in compromising relationships that left you feeling trapped and out of control and abuse, but I'm not trying to do that to you. What freedom to be a human who makes mistakes and has the freedom to correct it. And I get to feel okay with the knowledge that we are humans and we do make mistakes. But when that apology comes in or that discussion comes in, it is where the freedom is for both people. And then we make the amends. And I am working on my behavior, but I try to balance the justice scale sometimes. So we make an amends quickly. As soon as we catch it, when I've harmed somebody, I immediately said to him, I'm so sorry. I'm being a control freak again. And I want to apologize for that. And the fourth action step is to help someone. So we turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Bill doesn't actually say, go help somebody. We resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. And Bill was a pretty decent psychologist from a common sense standpoint. And he knew, in fact, we were beginning to think about other people. Number one, we weren't thinking about ourselves. And number two, that eventually we would actually take the action to help. It was in this process that Herb dropped using the word service for step 12 and sponsorship and for helping out as and and he replaced it with helping out instead of the word service. Herb felt it would be much simpler because it has dirt in it. You will get frustrated, your hands will get dirty, your time will be abused, and you will get tired if you are truly helping. So Herb made his little change to from service to helping. And I think I agree with that. I like that idea. Service sounds like, we go and do volunteer work or we walk someone's dog. This is just be truly helpful. Love and tolerance of ourselves and others is our code. There it is. It's my attitude and my behavior. Keep it simple. Love and tolerance. As we have ceased fighting anyone or even our addiction, here's the promise now with regard to the first step. We have ceased, including our sanity. We're waiting for that to return. We keep in mind the understanding of the words because step 2 says restored to sanity. There is no implying about psychiatric and psychological stuff, which this is meaning. And we will look at it deeper when we go into step 1 and 2 and all those other ones. And we'll look at the problem of the mind, especially Jim's story on pages 35 and 37. And Bill defines what sanity means, which is that we are vulnerable to the obsession. Not only has the drinking or the addiction use stopped, but we are placed in a position of neutrality. The inclination to use our addictions has been removed. That is what he's saying here. That is what neutrality is. So we have this spiritual shield living in the light and orbit around the light because we make those adjustments on a daily basis. When we were disturbed, we apply step 10 and we stay in alignment in the orbit around the light. And in step 11, we get guidance as to how to manage staying in orbit around that light, not only with the knowledge, but the power to do so. And in step 12, we operate on principles of universal spiritual human law that allows us to stay in orbit because we are helping somebody else, which is one of the basic principles of human behavior. If you want to be in the light and not the darkness, you have a relationship with light and you spread the light. You're not only a channel of light yourself, but the light in you shines through you to other people. And that's just how it's built. So Bill's trying to tell us that the outcome of the work is disproportionately larger than our contribution. And that is totally my experience. In fact, I don't remember it even feeling like work. So we don't fight it. We feel like we have been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We are behind the spiritual shield. The problem has been removed. We don't do this formula 1 + 1 = 2. No, we do steps 1 through 9, and 1 + 1 becomes 5. Because the outcome is disproportionately more than my contribution, as long as I stay spiritually fit. So here is the essence of Bill's teaching of step 10. It is easy to let up on the spiritual program of 10, 11, and 12 and start slacking off. Yesterday's work will not take care of today. We are headed for a crash as our addictions are very subtle, and there'll be more on this in step 1. Bill says we are not cured of addiction. That is unmanageability. That is the bedevilments. That is the spiritual malady. That it's the self-centeredness that plagues all of us. We merely have a daily reprieve, also known as a stay of execution from the daggers of my obsession, as long as I keep the spiritual shield intact. Not even the fear can get in there, but it doesn't hurt. It motivates us. We have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. What does a daily reprieve mean? Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. Whose vision? Most people say it is God's vision, but no, that is not the answer. We don't know what God's vision is. Bill is introducing us to the practice of meditation in the morning. I want to know what I am being asked to do today and who I am asked to be. It is my vision of God's will. It is my vision of reality. And reality is evolving and manifesting my vision, my invitation, based on the guidance that I'm receiving. And then Bill has, in quotes, and suggest a meditation with thy will be done. With my free will, I get to choose whether to be in alignment with my higher power or thy will be done. We will see it in step 1. I have willpower, I have free will, but not when it comes to addiction. Then I have no choice. When I use, I lose control. My body is defective, highly reactive, even allergic. When I don't engage and I make a commitment to not get in there, my mind is then defective and vulnerable to my obsession. When I start, I have no choice but to continue. I have no choice. I will pick up on my own willpower. My life will become unmanageable. My willpower is as defective and deficient with regard to my life as it is with regard to my addiction. My conclusion is I'm screwed. Bill says that we feel a sense of doom and hopelessness. Then in step 2, he asks us to make a decision. How ironic is that? In step 2, in chapter 4, he asks us to make a decision after he has just pummeled us with the experience that we don't have the ability to make a decision. But yet in step 1, we don't have a decision over our addiction. We don't have a decision over managing our lives. But in step 2, he says, we do have a decision to make. And that's on page 53, which is one of my favorite pages. This decision Bill asks us to make is not about our addiction or life, but about God or no God. On page 53, he says, God either is or he isn't. What is our choice to be? What's your choice? Here it is, my favorite part of the entire book. This is the extent of the only power of my willpower, which is singularly to choose God or choose no God. That is what Bill tells in reference to the traditions. We don't need any laws or regulations because there are only 2 disciplines. One is God, the other is addiction. You are either going for one or you're going for the other. So this is one of my all-time favorite stories. It's the story of 2 wolves. It's a wonderful analogy with dealing with what I've dealt with along my path, and I had a tremendous amount of fear and other emotions. So an old Cherokee Indian chief was teaching his grandson about life. He said, "A fight is going on inside of me," he told the young boy, "a fight between 2 wolves. One is evil, full of anger, resentment, despair, greed, self-pity, and false pride. The other is good, full of joy, peace, love, humility, kindness, and faith. This same fight is going on inside of you, grandson, and inside of every other person on the planet. The grandson ponders this for a moment and then asks the grandfather, Grandfather, which wolf will win? The old man smiled and simply said, whichever wolf you feed. The two wolves represent faith, the good and the positive, the white light wolf, and fear or the ego, the bad, negative, dark wolf. Faith in a power greater than myself brings with it wisdom, compassion, love, connectedness, and ultimately inner peace. Fear or addiction I see in myself and the world at large leads to suffering, loss of power, destructiveness, and eventually death. When I lose my connection to my higher power, I start to make ego choices. I connive, I lie to myself and others, and tell myself that I am in control again, inevitably feeding the dark wolf. The wolf is the wrong wolf, the wolf of fear and addiction. So I pray, contemplate, meditate, and I realign. I let go of the fallacy of control. I need to feed my faith on a daily basis to keep me from the dark, bad, enticing wolf. And even when the world outside is demanding, the state of my inner world should always be my primary concern, because without my spiritual balance, my relationship with power, I cannot properly live in harmony and wisdom with myself and with life. There are only two choices, two disciplines in the 12-step program of recovery. You are either going for one or you are going for the other. The dark side or the light side. There is no middle ground. The dimmer switch is going up or the dimmer switch is coming down. So in regards to the dimmer switch, I need to stay gently pressed up against it. It is wired to go down automatically, so I need to stay diligent and awake. And when I do, the results will be in contrast to resentment. I will experience forgiveness, and in releasing them, I am also released myself. I will experience trust instead of fear. My faith is strong. I will experience honesty instead of dishonesty, and therefore my life is in the flow of reality. And I will experience love in the sense of altruism, which is the unselfish concern for other people. It's simply doing things out of a desire to help, not because we feel obligated to do so out of duty, loyalty, or religious reasons, or to people please. No, instead it involves acting purely out of concern for the well-being of other people. Not to be confused with people pleasing, as I said. People pleasing is a manipulative, controlling act. We must make the distinction. And this all adds up to emotional sobriety. This is our rite of passage to humanity. It is optimal living. On page 85, Bill says, these are thoughts that must go with us constantly throughout our day. Our ceaseless companions, they will keep us in the flow. And how can I be in the flow of reality? Start with the understanding that reality just is. Capital I, capital S. Don't take it personally. It isn't about you. It is not negotiable, and you cannot change it. It's not fair or unfair. It is what is. It's real. My job is to see it for what it is and accept it, to adjust to it, because when I don't, I get disturbed, and when I am disturbed, I get tense. And when I get tense, the best way for me to remedy my tension is to use one of my addictions. This procession is the whole point of step 10, to live in serenity, in the flow, in harmony with what is, and to be content in the knowledge of reality and the flow that contains me. This doesn't exempt us from life having its ups and downs. Life always will. But it gives us the shock absorbers to handle the road when it gets full of potholes, emotionally and spiritually, that we seem to always fall into. But we can adjust to reality and be in the flow. This is my choice, God or no God, shock absorbers or not. Bill says it is the proper use of the will. If we carefully follow Bill's direction and stay in the flow, which is actually discussed in the Big Book, we will become God consciousness. That is the point of step 11. We saw that when we discussed spiritual awakening and spiritual experiences. There was a great line in there that says, awareness of the presence of God is the essence of a spiritual experience, with the emphasis on awareness, not a feeling, a thought, or knowledge, but a feeling of awareness. It starts out subtle, then it expands, and it weaves into our lives and becomes more evident. So our way of living, with the inventory, we clear the channel. We are the channel, or clearing of the channel with the 10-step spot checks, repeatedly, as this is the antidote to the darkness. Clearing the obstacles in us through those things that disturb us. In step 11, we fill the channel with prayer and meditation. We bring in the light, the energy, and the grace. It gives us the awareness of God, as he or it has always been there, and this awareness makes it available to us. And finally, in step 12, when my channel is filled, it spills over. I am not the light, but I am the container. And the brighter my container becomes, the more I can shine it on the path that I walk on. And others can join me in this light as we walk towards freedom. I clear the channel to enable it to be filled, and then I can share it with those around me so that they can have the opportunity to also become free.
There's a lot in there that you have to suspend your disbelief. You have to succumb to a certain way of thinking that you may never have believed before. And that's a very difficult task. And that's possibly where a lot of people get caught for a very long period of time. The ability to believe in a higher power, whatever that is, and to give yourself over to it, and to maybe do as Bill says. I don't have the big book. I have to get a copy of it. I don't even know which copy to get, but that's a side point. But to be able to have a conversation with yourself and be able to derive from that conversation a route map for every day that enables you to do the wishes of the higher power, so to speak, which is really the wishes, the your better self, being your better self in every day in every way. It's a very difficult thing, especially since we're probably here because the one thing that's really true is that we're all narcissists. You know, we're all here because our ego drives us to do things that are really bad for ourselves. So to suspend that disbelief and try and do the thing that they're asking us to do is a very difficult thing. And I'm certainly going to try and do it because I personally have to do it, or else I'm going to be in a very bad place where I already am. So the choice is true. The choice is either you're going to do it or you're going to continue to spiral downward into the abyss. And, if you can change, I look at the people in this group and we're all getting up there. If you can change your ways and be
Joel, that's kind of the point of this, the spiritual part is we can't do it. We can't
Right,
change.
right, no, right, no, we can't do it by ourselves.
Yeah, we
But,
can't do it.
but if you give yourself over to that higher power and you're able to do that and you're able to work it through and then it's very good. For lack of a better way of saying it.
Yes, it's very co-creative though. It's not, you know, I can't do it alone. I can do it with God's help. We can do it together. So it's definitely a co-creation. And it's gotta start somewhere, no matter how immense it might seem, which is why it takes us a whole year to go through the 12 steps, because there is a lot of it, a lot of information there. I mean, we only even use the first 164 pages. But in those 164 pages is so much information and so many messages beneath the words that we take the time to absorb it. And the most important thing we can do is to be willing. I'm willing to see things differently.
And that's the crux of it.
Yes.
To break your will and be willing to succumb to that after being egocentric for so many years is it's a very tough thing. But hopefully we can all do it.
We all can do it. There's
That's
no
right.
hopefully. There's no hopefully. We all can do it. And it's not as difficult as we think, because we're connecting to a power greater than ourselves. If we were doing it alone, it would be very difficult, but we're not. We're doing it with the power. So when we're connected to the power and the power moves us along, what seemed like a, a task that would be very difficult becomes very manageable. But the first step is we have to decide, is God everything or is God nothing?
Can I ask a question now?
Sure.
Which copy of the big book do I get? Which
We use the
edition?
most current one, which is the 4th edition.
Fourth edition?
Yeah, if you go on my website, you can actually, there's one you can even download if you don't want to purchase one. And you would only have to download the first 164 pages because we don't use
Oh.
the rest.
What's your website?
The website is 12stepspath.com.
It's 12stepspath. Okay, I could do that.
Okay. And
Thank
any
you.
questions, just let us know. Thank you for speaking up though. Hi, Cesar.
Hey, Lisa.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So when I'm doing the step 10 and I'm disturbed and I pause, I pray, and then I discuss it with someone immediately. Who is that someone? Is that the person that I hurt? Or do I go to my sponsor or
All right, so when you're disturbed, that's on you. So you're not going to talk to somebody that you potentially might have harmed. That would be an amends. This is more of a spot check. So you would speak to maybe a sponsor or a friend in the program and just, it's a way of getting it off your chest, so to speak. So you speak to somebody that you can, confide in, and you can get a little discussion going. It's not like a big 4th step type of thing. It's just more of a spot check, and you go through those 4 things, and the goal is to get to the last one, which is you turn your thoughts to helping somebody else.
But sometimes I can't get to somebody immediately, so it kind of like prolongs, I
Well,
can't
that's
do that
okay.
rapid, huh?
That's okay. Do what you can do. That's always the answer. Do what you can do. If there
Okay.
isn't somebody you can talk to, you could always write it down, journal it, or you could put it in a God box. You could go to a meeting. It's not like it's a do or die type of mentality. It's okay, this went on, I was disturbed. And like the story I told, I was very controlling towards my husband. Well, he happened to be there and I was able to say, I'm sorry, I was acting that way. And that works out great. Doesn't always work out that way. So you do the best you can with what you have. And
Okay.
if you
Thanks.
can find somebody to talk to, you talk. And if you can't, go on to the next part of the process.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Asa. Okay, Mark.
Yeah, hey. Yeah, I thought I think that the biggest takeaway from today that was really, really good to hear was the whole bit about that I actually don't know that it's actually God's will. It's my version of God's will. But to be honest, I do need to follow it up with that usually, like my experience, and some of this stuff is from outside sources beyond like maybe the 12 step, but usually I find that if I've heard it in two-way prayer and then I've heard it from other humans, it's we're pretty close to like 100% that this is really what I'm supposed to be doing. Like one case in point with some stuff that I need to be doing going towards the recovery side is I did a lot of like inventory and in one of my programs, I'm in many, around what I'm here working with y'all about. And I got some insight around Christmas on what I needed to do to move towards recovery in the particular addiction I'm working on. And it's amazing. And I could see it like tonight even more clearly, or even over the last few weeks. But I was sharing with somebody else who's also in one of the other sessions of this year-long course that I finally this past week was able to be I was in this in this job interview, and I was able to tell them exactly what I needed, which is what I had been asked to do in December, but I had resisted for like 8 months. You know what I mean? Like I had just been kind of like, I'll do it my way, or I don't need to do it. Maybe it's not God's will, even though I had heard it from other human beings in December and heard it from God. Um, but it's so it was really, really kind of important to hear that. Yeah, when I do the two-way prayer, I don't actually know that that's God's will, but my experience when I hear it in the two-way prayer and it comes up over and over again, and then, for example, I have some people I call for outreach, and then I call my guy for outreach, and he's saying the same thing that God was telling me a couple days ago. Then it's probably safe to say that that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Um, and like in my experience. So I think that's really sort of like the bulk of what I wanted to say. And I I I, I also think like I continue to really have a lot of um, powerful God shots, and then I also have had a lot of powerful breakdowns as well. Um, and like the clarity I've been getting, I can't even really like express the level of it's like a deeper, deeper sense of clarity that if anything, maybe I had some of this clarity years and years ago when I maybe first worked the steps the very first time. But a lot of it, I think sometimes, in my experience, you can get hazy or you can like cut corners. And I'll just say this to kind of wrap the idea that instead of my trying to worry about a piece of paper, am I mucking up now? Can I go and find the person and straighten it up now? That's really, really powerful. And I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Mark, the other thing that I would tell you is when you come to the place where you turn to the choice that God is everything, then all of those things that come up in your presence, like about the job and stuff, and you wonder, is this the right path, or is this God's voice, or did these people come in my presence? Well, if God is everything, then the answer to all of that is yes. Kristen D.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Lisa. Thanks so much for the class and everything. It's always just nice to get, a little bit different perspective, because like we all see it through our own lens, right? And our own experience and hope. And I guess I've been in 12-step program for quite a long time, and I love, more is revealed and peeling the layers of the onion. and just understanding step 10. And I know in the beginning, and I don't know if there's any really newer people to program in the group, but I found step 10 to be really kind of intimidating. And I found it almost like shaming in the beginning. And I think it was because I looked at it as almost like, it's like the police, going, "Ooh, Kristen, you're being selfish, you're being self-centered, you're being dishonest," And as time went on, I began to see that really step 10 is how I learn all the stuff up until though, it's like we just kind of get the tip of the iceberg in step 4 when we first do it. And looking at our character defects, it's kind of like, okay, we're becoming aware of them. But during the day, if I can use that yardstick of when I'm disturbed, it's like, okay, stop. Oh, this is a great learning opportunity. And to use it in a really compassionate way for myself, that all this is helping me see, the old Dr. Phil question, how's it working for you, Kristen? It's not like, is it good? Is it bad? Is it right? Is it wrong? How's it working? Is it helping me feel peaceful? Is it helping me get along with people? And if I could just take away that guilt and shame, which I had so much of that all my life, and just to use it as a wonderful learning tool, it really, really did help me. And the other thing was, for myself, finding a higher power took me a long time in program. And I work with a lot of sponsees and stuff where they're really struggling. And so they're like, everyone talks about that higher power is giving them this guidance and this and that. And I said, well, what helped me, because I was the same way, is that I became aware of, and I even ask them, what are the principles? Because we go back to step 12. What are those principles that I hold dear? Who's the person? What is my best self? What does that look like? And I think as we work the program and we listen to other people and we start to kind of see, who's the person that I want to be? And so I'll say to them, that maybe you don't believe in a higher power is going to give you guidance right now, but is what I'm doing right now in alignment with me being my best self? And that really helps me a lot. If I don't have that trust and I don't believe in a higher power really yet, it's almost that idea of holding, I think at some deep level, we all have these aspirations of who we want to be in the world. And we kind of know when we're out of alignment with that. And so, if there's anybody in the group that, struggles with higher power, because for the longest time, and sometimes I still get into that. I don't trust, I don't know what the right thing is. But I do know when I feel in alignment. So it's like when my head and my heart are meshing, or my actions and my intentions to be this loving, kind, compassionate person, and it's like, oh boy, that is not in alignment with that. And so that helps me. But yeah, it's really, I don't know. And I don't know if it's maybe the difference between men and women, but I know that, men wrote the big book, the original, and, maybe more that idea, because I think women tend to internalize and blame ourselves for everything and think we're wrong and bad. And it's sometimes I've seen a lot of sponsees where they can take the steps in the way sometimes they're interpreted in practice as one more thing to beat themselves up with, rather than saying all these are things that we've learned that were very helpful. That's why we did them, but they don't work anymore. And we got to figure out a better way. But we're not.
That's the lenses that need to be changed. We need to see things differently.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
But
that's the main goal of the connection with the higher power, is to see things differently. And I think, touching on what you said, it's that everything concept. We have to at least be willing that there could be something bigger than ourselves. Because I know even for me, it was a long struggle. But when I got to the point where I was introduced to the concept of God is either everything or God is nothing, I was ready for that. I wanted it to be that. And it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen when I was 20 years old or even 30 or 40. So it took time, and it took living my life the way that I lived it before I got to a place where I was willing to believe that God is everything. And then when you're willing and that starts to roll, it flows into the spiritual awakening, and it changes everything.
Exactly. And I guess everybody has to find their own concept. And for me, doing the work and feeling like what is important and what is my best self and what are the things I hold dear. And it was really love and compassion and kindness and service. And to me, that's what higher power is for me. You know, I
Mhm.
don't have a conception of this, you know, the Christian kind of God or anything, but it took me time to figure that out. And by doing the step work and keeping this open mind, and that
Right.
to be a certain thing, you know.
And the
I'm with you,
beautiful,
Kristen.
the beautiful thing about it is, if you don't feel like the God that you believe in or the power that you have is sufficient, you can expand it.
Right.
There's no limitation. God is as expandable as the universe is. So if we're in a place where we're doubting that our God would have the capability of doing what we need to do or doing what's best, we can expand that. We can broaden that. There is no limitation.
Yeah, more will be, what do they say, that, you know, that these are suggestions only, that, you know, more will be revealed, and that, you know, we know only a little, and that more will be revealed to us over time. And that's what about the program is, that really, you know, I always tell sponsees, the only thing we need is the commitment to be teachable. I
Yep.
show up in class every day and I'm teachable, and, you know, a little bit of willingness, and just we keep doing that over time. I mean, I really have more is revealed and more is revealed, more clarity. But
Yep.
it's like the educate, like they say with the spiritual appendix, you know, the spiritual experience, that for most of us, it's this over a lifetime that we just keep over and over learning more things, getting more insight, you know.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
but I'm just so grateful, you know, because this program really gives us the blueprint and that way of life of having that over time.
Exactly.
And I just really appreciate, you know, you sharing how this process has worked for you, and listening to everyone else. It's very inspiring. So thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Andrea or Andrea?
Hi, I'm Andrea, alcoholic. Thank you. You pronounced it right. And oh, there you are. Thank you for your service and all. Really, sometimes I'm tired from this. Anyway, long story, but so sometimes I'm lying down. And sorry, I was helping my mom earlier. Anyway, but I just wanted to say, like, I really like what you said about just 28 and a little change in this time around. Like that, I'm paraphrasing. So like we kind of know, but we don't have the power, and I know that's like a small thing, but it really, being 28 years in and second time around and really practicing it since 91, like, and I feel like I've gone backwards for a while. Um, I don't know. It's like I need to expand. I need a greater power, but I do have the intuitions. But I also, yeah. So, like you were just saying earlier to somebody else about how, well, God, if it's in our life, like as our job, and like sometimes I sign up for things like, say, a union thing with the job, and now I'm like, oh God, I don't want to do all this politics. I'm not into all that, but how do I get out of it? And it's always in my mind, and then I just show up. But it's like, it's so like not, I don't know. But also what you said about spreading the light or the love, like just, it kind of helped me today because I've been in such a funk, and I just like spread light, in that moment when you said that, and to somebody I needed to, that is again a different job, and it's like, okay, she's still my client, she got this thing, okay, spread some light. And then the other part, the last thing was just that you said about the 10th step, like it says to find another human being. It doesn't say your sponsor, it doesn't say somebody in AA. Thank God, because since I am not in a big sponsorship family, I don't have like a clique or any, I'm kind of finding new meetings. It just took a new commitment tonight. And most people have less time. It doesn't matter. Like most people I talk to, I mean, that doesn't matter. I read something to some man I gave a ride to last night today, but it's hard because I can't always, it's a lot of work to find somebody in that moment. So sometimes I just have to tell the person that's in front of me. It could be like my mother who's not in the program, or it could
Yeah.
be like a cashier or something. I don't know. I mean, not a cashier usually, but I'm just saying, So
You
that's
know,
all.
I've even on occasion, recorded myself saying it.
Oh, to give it to someone later?
I just
Or-
record, if I don't have somebody that I can give it to, I record myself saying what I need to say.
So you count that as sharing with another person?
I'm sharing it in general.
Oh, with yourself. Okay.
Yeah, it's the process of saying it that is the healing part of it.
Oh, I like
If you
that.
can't find somebody that you can tell it to, or at
Yeah.
least you're using, you know, your mouth and you're speaking and your vocal cords and all that, you're actually in the process of doing it.
No, that makes sense. And
Yeah.
especially if I want integrity with God and I have to live with myself. And if I'm saying out loud and I'm being honest about what just happened,
Right.
I may be able to clean it up or not have to on my own if there's not like somebody right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what you said about, you know, you've gone through the steps twice or whatever, and you've been in the program for 28 years. Well, you know, you've spent 28 years being sober. That's been a goal, and that's a humongous goal of the 12 steps. But what a lot of people don't realize is, first of all, the 12 steps is not a one and done or a start to finish. It's a continuous. It never ends because you're never going to end. You're going to continue to evolve. Therefore, the steps have to evolve with you, which they will do. So each time you uncover a layer of yourself, you're going to get more information from the 12 steps also that you can't see right now, that maybe your ego is covering up. So the process is more important than getting to the end, to getting to the 12th step. I mean, even in this, we didn't even start at the first step. You know, we went a little out of the way, so to speak. So there is no start to finish. It isn't like you've done something wrong. You have maintained sobriety for 28 years. That's phenomenal. Now, for whatever reason, you're in the right place and you're going to do things a little differently and you're going to get a little different life out of it. Nothing's for naught. You know what I mean? It was all necessary. Whatever you did was what you needed to do, and it was the best thing that you could do. So don't
Thank you.
feel like you know, have to do something different. You're doing great. You're doing what you need to do. And when those voices come in and, oh, I'm not doing it right, or I'm not doing enough, or I'm not getting the right person, that's your ego. Talk to God. Don't talk to your ego. Don't
Yeah.
talk to your ego.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't talk to your ego. You will never win the argument. Talk to your God. They have better answers.
That's it. That's all. I was going to ask you something else about outside issues. That's a whole different thing. So I'm good. No, you'll get to it. That part in the
Okay.
big book, I'm sure. Okay.
Thank you. Irene?
Yes, just two quick comments. One, I just want to speak about the importance of 10 step. I did the workshop with on the steps with her for 5 times. The first time I did my 4th step, and it was really tremendous surgery. It hurt like that. And then the second round, still something was left over. So I needed to do just a quick 4th step on one resentment. After that, by practicing 10 step daily, I realized that no disorder, no difficulty, no fear that would suffice, would kind of put roots in me. I mean, in the space of 1, 2, 3 days, resentment, fears, etc., got settled. So in the last 3 times, I don't have resentments. I don't have to do the 4th step at that level. It gets a continuous work. So I'm always speak. You know, for me, it's a very important step in daily in my life. And I live a lot more in peace, not having resentment to harbor and to.
Mm-hmm.
So the second thing I wanted to say, I learned this from her, and I think as becoming also very important for me about 11 step. when I do my prayer and meditation, I ask God, guide my thinking. And then I got to trust that He is guiding. Now, it's still true that I can, but it's also true that I can misinterpret, that I can whatever, I project a lot of my stuff. But it's also true that then there is reality. First, the first thing is that the more I work the step and the more I live a life in recovery and the more I do 10, 11, 12 steps, the channel is cleaner and cleaner. So the capability of being really simple and honest in receiving, it gets better and better. But also, the other way through which God speaks to me is reality. And the cleaner is the channel, the more I'm capable of looking at reality the way it is. So sometimes it happens that I have this idea, okay, I ask, what do you want me to do? And now guide my thinking and I have the idea, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Then reality corrects me. I cannot do that, and that's okay. So, and reality corrects me can also be a friend that tells me, no, I really don't think so. And I'm able to listen and to kind of compare. So it really, doing these 3 steps and living them daily, the channel gets clearer and clearer. The communication gets clearer and clearer. And there are many ways through which God communicates that. That's my little contribution.
No, that's fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing that. That's wonderful that you're at that place where you can live in the top 3 steps. You know, that's the goal. That's really why Herb starts it this way. He wants people to realize this is the way of living. If you do nothing else and you understand the 10, 11, and 12, you can get so much more out of the program and out of life. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. Okay. So I don't see any more hands. And I'm going to close with the Serenity Prayer. You guys are all muted, so we can say it together. And again, if anyone has any questions or anything, just send me an email. We'll close with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks so much, Lisa.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Great week, everyone.
Good night.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. Have a good week.